Steve Wraith and Lee Clark. How are you, Lee?
I'm okay, Steve. Thanks. Not a lot to talk about progression-wise, I think. Well, in saying that, I've read some articles from Richard Masters again talking about the takeover process, and there's been little snippets being handed to the media, like as always. I've seen an article a day where BBC had seen a letter that was sent to the lawyers of the lady whose husband was apparently murdered by someone in the Saudi Arabian government. So which they're saying, the Premier League are saying they're going to take very seriously and be part of the process, which we knew in anyway, really. We're not being told anything we didn't know. Everything will be under consideration. So, and then obviously there was a piece earlier in the week, I don't know if you've seen that, from Henry Winter, who, especially in the football world, as people, ex-players and managers and people who've worked with him, have a lot of respect for Henry. He seems to be quite positive about Newcastle as well. He seems to have a little bit of an affinity for the club, even though he's not from this area. And he says, even if the Saudi Arabian scenario doesn't come off, there's certainly the possibility of not the American guy who's been mentioned, but another American consortium who'll take it over. So he was basically saying for Newcastle fans not to worry, that the takeover will happen. It'll just be with whom. I don't know what you've heard or what do you make of it all? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard quite a bit this week about more leaks, and to be honest, there's been more leaks in this takeover than any other takeover I've ever known, and I just think it's a bit, it's just a bit bizarre. You know what I mean? We'd never hear anybody else.
Say, Steve, it is. You're 100% spot on that. People in such high positions, i.e., the boss of the Premier League and the lawyer of this lady, for them to have paperwork that should be confidential that's being leaked. See, it is a strange one for me. So it seems like we've talked about over the previous weeks, there does seem to be people out there with hidden agendas, for whatever reason.
Yeah, there's a few people asking the same question. Sean Sturrock says, "Hi lads, Mitch gave me his thoughts this afternoon." That's the Geordie dentist. Just wanted to know your thoughts on Richard Masters' meeting with BN. And then Les Lumsey says, why would and why should Richard Masters be meeting BN sports directors? Does this mean anyone who's against the takeover just rings Masters and gets a meeting? I mean, it's two good points, but the BN sports thing is, again, it's old news. And there doesn't seem to be a timeline on this. I've looked into it, and there doesn't seem to be a timeline when this happened. It's a statement to say that Richard Masters has met BN Sports, but remember the BN Sports thing broke a few weeks ago, so there's no guarantees that this has just happened. This is something that maybe has happened a few weeks ago and it's just coming out now. So it's because it's dragging on that it's Newcastle fans a bit anxious.
Yeah, I think they're starting to panic and they're starting to look into every little thing. I mean, Richard Masters might have needed to meet BN Sports, with them being the Premier League partner over in the Middle East, and he's obviously just come newly into the job. It mightn't have anything to do with the Newcastle United takeover at all. Or, like he said in previous statements, he's leaving no stone unturned in the process of accepting this takeover bid, and he's maybe talking to them and what their thoughts are on and their complaints against the Saudi Arabian people in company. So for me, I think it's just natural, and it could be either of those. And if it is, I don't think it's for anything to panic about. I think if he's being very thorough in the process, that's fair play to him. You just hope that in other situations going further down the line during his stewardship of the Premier League, he'll be as thorough with other clubs as well over various different things, etc., because it has happened in the past where some owners where you kind of think, how did they really pass the fit and proper persons tests, and they've got into the game. So this could be a new way of doing it with him at the helm, and him being really thorough in his thought process over it. So I don't think it's a particularly significant thing in terms of for a lot to panic about for Newcastle fans. I understand why, because it is dragging on. I've got to admit myself, you're hoping every day you get up, there's going to be some significant news, positive news that just finally has it all completed. So it is taking its time, but I do think it's the process that they have to go through in the predicament we're in at the moment.
It's like the letter you mentioned before, Lee. I mean, you know, the content to Richard Masters' letter to Kazugi's girlfriend, you know, people were like almost picking up the fact that because it was sympathetic, that was bad news for the takeover. But like, you know, we had Red Rose Michelle on the other day, and she, you know, I noticed one of her tweets this week where she essentially said, "Well, what do people expect? Do they expect them? You know, they expect Masters to write to somebody's, you know, somebody who's lost somebody and say, oh well, you know, tough pet, you know that." It's not happening, is it? Yeah, you're going to write, you're going to be sympathetic and say, you know, obviously we're taking into consideration your letter, etc. But in the grand scheme of things, you know, it probably won't affect the takeover. But you know, they've got to do that. So again, it's because there's a lack of information, Lee, that people are really starting to get that. You know, it's anxious is definitely the word. Like,
well, I think what's happening is there was so much excitement and positivity amongst the Newcastle United family, the fans, and that's just getting eroded away a little bit, and they're starting to panic that it's a false dawn again, I think. And, you know, they don't want that. And I think that's why I wanted to stress about Henry Winter's piece was to all Newcastle fans was the message. The club will be taken over. Don't panic. Don't worry. The Mike Ashley era is coming to an end. Now it's whether it's with the Saudi Arabian consortium or the American people, but he was very, very confident that one way or the other, the club was going to be getting taken over. So, and as I said, he's very, very highly respected inside and outside of the game, and does have a bit of a soft spot for Newcastle. So I don't think he'd want to be putting his top journalistic reputation on the line by just putting, you know, rumour out there. I think he must have a lot of information, to be honest.
Let's just hope that the Americans, if it ended up in a situation, you know, have got as much money, if not more, than the Saudis. But we'll wait and see on that. Sean Foreman says, afternoon, lads. What's your thoughts about Matty Longstaff being linked to Udinese and Watford? Now, obviously, the Watford link is because obviously Udinese and Watford, you know, do a bit of business together. And I think it was Malcolm MacDonald brought that up the other night. Where
they're actually owned by the same family, Steve.
Yeah. Malcolm
the Pozzo family. It's a heartbreaker one for me. This, I've been looking at this closely, as you well know. I know the family well, but I can't believe that a young lad who's so highly thought of by the supporters, you can see he's potentially going to be a regular in the team, no matter who the manager is, no matter who the ownership are. He's an extremely talented young man. He could become a top Premier League and international footballer who, you know, if he can continue his development that he started off, he's hit the ground running. He's going to two clubs. In my opinion, Udinese, they're not even a big team in Italy. He's going to go over there, spend a few months, mightn't even be that long, depend on how they work the new windows. And this is a loophole that obviously I understand about, because I've been offered this opportunity as a manager before, and also about bringing players in. And because they're owned by the Pozzo family, Watford will then take him for a small fee, a really small fee in comparison. What if Watford went straight in for him now? Would be having to, you know, what Newcastle could claim in compensation, because both clubs are Premier League and both have Category 1 academies. The compensation figures would be bigger. And when you're talking about, you know, there's rumour that there's his salary, the maximum he's been offered on a new deal is circa 15,000 a week, and he's going to double that at Udinese and then probably get more when he goes on to Watford. I can't, it's just mind-boggling that, to think over the course of a contract, say he signs a 5-year deal, you're talking 5-6 million extra pounds on the salary. You know, if there's incentives there, you know, if he gets wage rises for hitting targets, etc. See, if it even went to 10 million over the 5 years, if you sell that player, if you have that player for another 5 years, you think what his valuation could be if he hits the heights. If he doesn't, for whatever reason, God forbid, he gets a serious injury, or he doesn't get to the levels what we've seen him reaching in, it's a risk. Every time you sign a player to a contract, you take some kind of risk. It's whether it's even if he's an experienced player and you pay big money, if it's a youngsters. But for 10 million, an extra 10 million pound to that contract over 5 years, and that's probably the worst scenario could be, to give him the figures that have been mentioned he could get in Serie A, Udinese, or in then eventually with Watford. I cannot understand it. I can't get my head around it, and I just think that's why another reason why you're hoping the takeover happens, because you hope that these new potential owners will see sense and put that extra money in there. Because I can't believe Matty Longstaff wants to leave Newcastle United, especially for those potential destinations. I think he's wanting to be brought in line. And there will be an argument to say, you know, he's only played a handful of games, but that's football now. It doesn't matter. That's the market. It's like if you're trying to sell your house, it's only worth what someone's going to pay. And if Udinese and Watford are going to give Matty double the money that's on offer at Newcastle, you know, the boy's going to look after, he's going to do that. It's like if you had a house and you wanted 2 million, but one person's only going to give you 1.5 million and someone else is going to give you 2.5, you go with the one who's going to give you 2.5. So it's just a sad situation for me, being an ex-player and an ex-local lad who was lucky enough to play for the club on many occasions, that we're not only losing a local player, but someone who could potentially be a big player going forward.
Yeah, 100%. Dave Harrison says, afternoon, chaps. I'm sick of all the negativity. Is it getting to you or is it just me? Well, I'm definitely not letting it get to me. I'm just concentrating, and Lee's on the rosier wine, so he's fine. Darren, we'll always get one of these, Lee, on a Saturday afternoon. Darren Tannock, there's always a story about you in your past. Lee, you were a year older than me at school. My mother walloped you round the head in a shop in Walker thinking it was me. She still feels guilty now.
I've lost it. I can't remember that, but I would have probably just thought I was getting tooled up of someone else, because I was always doing something wrong. I was a little tour rag around Walker, so I probably didn't think anything more of it, to think that I was just getting a slap off somebody's mum, because I'd been like, I don't know, been messing around that house or something, or playing knocking 9 doors or whatever.
Local Hero says, why has nobody sent a letter to...
But
whoop, you've gone.
I have. Someone keeps ringing us, I think.
Oh, that's what it is. Someone keeps ringing you.
Aye, yeah. I better decline it. Hold on. It's probably my mum. Do you know, when I was in, they've got a story, I know you cannot see us, right?
Yeah.
But when I was working as a coach, I was assistant manager at Norwich City, and we played Plymouth away one game, and I went up in the stands, and we didn't have these earpieces at the time, so I thought I'd take my phone so I could stay in contact with Glenn Roder. And at about 3:05, my mum rang us and saying, where are you, son? I says, Mum, you know what I do for the living, man. I says, I'm watching the match, but I need my phone to speak to the manager. And she's saying, well, I've had my garden cut and I've been on my hair done.
What about...
I need to get back on. I need to get back on, Steve. What do I do?
I don't know, where are you? You're here. I can hear you perfectly well, but it's a black screen at the minute. I'm not sure
I know.
Video. There you go. You might be coming back on now. We've got something happening here.
I'll tell you what I'll do. Don't worry, all the people. I'll leave and I'll rejoin, will I?
Yeah, do that, mate. Do that. Good stuff. Right. Okay. So why has nobody sent a letter to Disney or one of the many companies that they have bought shares in? It's a good question, Local Hero. To be honest, you know, maybe they have, but I'm not 100% sure whether that's the case. Lee back now. Okay. Local Heroes asked a question, Lee. Why has nobody sent a letter to Disney or one of the other companies that the Saudis have bought shares in?
Exactly. I mean, there's been stories that Manchester United have been dealing with Saudi companies for the last 12 to 15 seasons to do business with, and I don't know. Of course, we've talked about, we feel sympathy for what's happened to certain individuals, and we've never wanted to get involved in that political side. But you know, the thing is, at the moment, I don't know, that there's obviously people out there with this hidden agenda.
Lee,
Whether they're worried that Newcastle are going to come in. force the issue and force our way into the top 4 again and into the European competitions. It just seems a strange one to me that so much is being made of it. We know all the history of the deal and what's being said and what's been for the takeover and against the takeover. The Premier League just need to deal with it now.
Colin Wilson says, Mitch has mentioned yesterday that the Saudis will not want to lose face to Qatar. Also, if there is an NDA in place, the Premier League will discuss to deal with a third party. So that's, it's a good point. That, I mean, Mitch obviously, is out there in the Middle East, but he is right that somebody asked him the question last night, would the Saudis get tired of waiting? Would they get sick of all the interference? And he said, no, it'll drive them on. And especially with Qatar being behind a lot of this, then from their perspective, they'll want to win this particular battle as they see it. So he wasn't concerned at all, and he did make that point as well about the NDA, that the Premier League certainly couldn't discuss it with another party, i.e. the Americans, who are allegedly in waiting in case it goes belly up. So we'll just have to wait and see. I genuinely think this will get done, but like the problem, as I say, it's always been the time scale, and people just feel as if it's dragging on. We don't know when it started or anything, So. Kenny Trainer, anyway, he says Nash is on the cheap rosy again. Hopefully the cans soon. What's your choice of cans when it does happen? Cheap as the rosy.
Aye, McEwen's export or tenants or no, I'll have it. I'll go for the Moretti. I'll go for the Dia stuff. If it's I'm not sure they do it in cans though, Moretti. I might just have to put it into a can.
The Geordie Jedi says Ashley must have cheated on the test, which I think most people would agree. Steve Hutchins going through, Masters wouldn't waste his time talking to BN if he wasn't going to approve the takeover. If it was going to fail, then no need to talk to BN. Saudi now buying the rights too. And that is a good point because, yes, Masters may well have had a conversation with BN Sports, but it might well have been about what's going to happen when the takeover goes through. There's always the flip side. There's the positive. He might have been talking to them about that.
Absolutely, Steve. There could have been numerous things that Masters was talking to BN about without a shadow of a doubt. And I don't think it was like it's already been said. He's not going to break that confidentiality with the Saudis about the takeover, and then go and speak to someone else because it's really BN Sports don't need to be involved in this takeover. It's not between them. It's between Newcastle United, the Saudis, and the Premier League. So if Masters, I would probably believe he hasn't even talked to them about that. It would probably be about something else. I'm like you. I do believe this will still happen. And I understand why there's just a little bit of, not fear, that's a bit of a strong word, but a little bit anxiety amongst Newcastle fans probably, and anxiousness. And I just think, and it's understandable, but I think it's still going to happen. And I think, they always say if something's worth having, it's worth waiting for. So, hopefully that's the case with this.
Joe McClellan sent 2 questions in. Just says, any thoughts on the 16-man woman PM and PS team who called on government to intervene and stop sport washing? And do you think if this Saudi takeover failed, Amanda and the Rubens would return on their own? The Rubens are after all worth over £18 billion themselves. Again, Prime Minister, and the government have already said they won't be intervening. It won't matter how many, MPs put letters in or come forward and complain. The government said they won't get involved. And, as for Joe's second point about would Amanda and the Rubens come back, well, they possibly could. I mean, the Rubens are self-sufficient. It would mean that obviously you're losing a valuable partner in the proceedings. But you would imagine with Amanda and co, 17, 18 million pounds up front, that they won't want to lose that, and they would at least look at a plan B.
Without a doubt, I do. They're good points because I have been on record as saying I think the Reuben brothers and Amanda Staveley will still want to be interested if the worst case scenario happens and would still go ahead and would still have wealthy owners. Because I know, one of the brothers, their son, who was on the board of directors at QPR, there's been a report this morning that he started, transfer dealings and looking at potential new signings for the football club, because obviously he was on the board there at QPR for a while. So, yeah, and I'm with you totally on the ministerial one and the Prime Minister. They're not going to open a can of worms, Steve. I don't. If they get involved in this Newcastle United deal, they'll have to get involved in every single deal that happens in football after this. And you know that's not what it's about. I've gone back off again, haven't I? Because someone's left us a message, a voicemail, and it's.
Is it your mum? He's gone again. Some good questions coming in, by the way. We'll get Lee back on as soon as he gets out of his, of his situation with his phone. Murphy says, if the PFI fail, would Steve Wraith and Lee Clark put their millions in together to buy us? Much asking if me and you would put our billions together and buy the football club if this fails.
My billions is only in Monopoly money, so I'm not sure it'd be accepted.
Colin Wilson asked a question, maybe you can answer. Can contracts be discussed during a takeover?
It can be. It can be done by the current regime. It can, but as we've seen in the past, why is Mike going to get involved in paying extra money to somebody if he knows he's not going to be the owner? So I suppose that's a good sign. Because he didn't really want to put his hand in his pocket at times of being the current owner. But if they're far down the line and they get the indication that this takeover is happening, it's they could well have got in touch with the representatives of Matty Longstaff and said, this is the situation. I think I mentioned it with you a couple of weeks ago. This was very similar to what happened with myself when I got capped by England schoolboys, and then I got to be known quite nationally rather than just locally. Liverpool came in with an offer of about £250,000, and this was in about 1988, which was a lot of money, and it was before the Sir John Hall Magpie Group took over, and the club didn't have a lot of money. It was just local businessmen. Gordon McKeague was the chairman, and Gordon accepted the offer and asked me and my father to go into the club. And we went in and he said, listen, we've accepted the offer from Liverpool and we really need the money, so Lee'll have to go. And I was just a schoolboy player. I didn't want to go. I'd signed for the club and I turned down other clubs as a schoolboy because I wanted to have an opportunity to try and fulfill my dreams. So we got a little bit upset by that. But through the Magpie Group, Sir John got a message to us to say, don't worry, the takeover's happening. The club won't need the money. That you don't have to move. Don't be pressurised. So on a smaller scale, that's what could be happening with Matty, or could happen. You know what I mean? So someone who's going to be involved in the takeover, if they see Matty as an important player, and they might get information to him to say sit tight, but all the indications are at the moment that isn't happening. But we don't know what's happening behind the scenes.
Alan White says, how disappointed were you, Lee, when you got dropped for David Batty after playing so well in the 95 and 96 season?
Of course, you're always disappointed. Let's get things first. I was ended up being a great mate at David Batty's. We had a great, professional and personal relationship. We had great laughs together. I loved his humour. He was a technically good player. He was a different type of midfield player to me, of course. And yeah, I was disappointed because I felt I was playing in a team that was playing well. We were top of the table. I was playing well myself in a sort of new position. And whenever you get left out. So when I always say that I felt it was undeserved and maybe he's played a part in us not win the league, that's not me criticising David. That's just me feeling we were settled. I was playing in a different type of way to David, the way David played the role. And, because of me attacking instincts from the earlier days, we used to play the ball quickly forward with quality, and David played the role in a different way to me. So, yeah, I was disappointed, of course, and still am to this day. Who knows if me staying in the team, might have changed, history. You can never tell. There's been various, you will have heard this, you know this when you speak to the lads, there's been various different stories out there why we didn't end up winning it. My belief is one of the main reasons we didn't have enough players with the experience in comparison to Manchester United.
Yeah, no, that's fair point. Man United were on a hell of a run and of course had Cantona and won a lot of those games 1-0. Johnny Etherington says, great as always, lads. How much do you think the reported fact that both buyer and sellers have been in contact about contracts at this point to the deal being done? I mean, again, it's a newspaper report and, it's only as good as the person who's written it. But, I think it's part of the takeover. They have to speak to the potential buyer because obviously if they're saying we're going to buy X, Y, and Z, then ultimately, if they're not going to be buying X, Y, and Z, they have to know why. So, it's probably a point of, it's a point of law of takeovers that there has to be some communication with regards to that.
Absolutely, yeah. I think when you're talking about a transaction of this size, there has to be, So we've got to, we kind of just keep looking into every little minor detail. We've got to be positive, stay positive, and if we do that, everything should be fine.
Nathan Rooney says, hi, boys. Great show, Steve. Keep up the good work. Watching from Shanghai in China. Hi, Nathan. You want to get on a plane at some point and bring Rafa Benitez back? That would be great. Says, Lee, what was it like playing with Sunderland? What was the situation ended up at the stadium of shite? Was any other for you at the time? I mean, we've been through this on previous shows, but obviously you mustn't have heard. I mean, look, you went to Sunderland because you wanted to stay living in the northeast, and ultimately, you gave it your best shot when you were there, and you were voted, I think, the best player 2 seasons in a row.
Yeah, listen, it wasn't the club. That club then was having a successful period in that 2-3 years, and the crowds the stadium was full. I did have other options. Sunderland were the last club I spoke to out about 7. I could have went to both Glasgow Giants, Celtic or Rangers. I spoke to them. I spoke to Aston Villa at the time. Derby County were in the Premier League. My old boss, Jim Smith, who gave us my debut. So I had a strong affinity with him. Manchester City, in a club, Marseille, I had contact with in France. But, like you said, I just had a young son, my first child. We lived in the area, and, I decided that I wanted to stay in the northeast. That's why even the move later on to Fulham surprised me and my family, because, I never ever thought I'd uproot from the northeast. I'm glad I did. Had a fantastic time down there, but it was never going to change it. I mean, people say, well, if you're a black and white, then how could you go and play for Sunderland? Well, that's the professional side. Ultimately, I would, for example, if my situation was like a Matty Longstaff, I wouldn't be going out the door, because Matty, I can tell you now, Matty, unless he's been told otherwise, which I would find astonishing, he's going to be a regular in the team. He's going to be regular. And when that happens to you, when it's your time, that you're going to keep having to fight for your place, and sometimes get harshly treated when you feel when you should be in the team, etc. And when you're training as hard as I did, I used to train as hard as I played Monday to Friday, and then that you're getting taken away, that adrenaline rush on the Saturday, getting a few substitute appearances here and there, or waiting for someone to get injured. You've got a decision to make, because your football career is so short, and you're there to play football. At the end of the day, that's what you want to do. That's what I grew up doing on the streets. So it was just a decision I made for that reason. I used to come back, I used to go back to St. James's and watch them all the time when I was playing for Sunderland. It didn't stop me being a Newcastle United supporter. Everyone at Sunderland knew that. What I had to do when I played for Sunderland was give of me best, make sure the fans felt they were getting value for money. And like you said, 2 years player of the year, I think I've done that. So, and then you move on. And that's the way I see it.
Yeah. Danielle Lowther says, Nash, pass the rosy, will you? It's my birthday tomorrow, and I was hoping it would be done by now. All this Twitter stress is driving me mental.
Yeah. Natalie, there's the rosy. There you go. I tell you what, an example, I want to get away on holiday somewhere. I want to go up to Spain. That's what I must have me on the anxiety stress levels about flying and going on holiday. And I'm same example on a similar level to the Newcastle United fans. My wife and kids are sick of us keep saying, oh, Spain's on phase 3 of lockdown and when's quarantine going to finish?
B. Taylor says, what's your views on the reports this morning about Richard Masters? We've spoke about that. We said, look, you know, he could have been meeting about anything. If you know, we talked about that at the top of the show. Craig Foster, why do you both think so many people want this takeover to be stopped? I think it's because they don't want to go far north to become a powerful force. Do you think there's some legs in that, Lee?
Well, there's got to be, Steve, because there's too many leaked reports coming out with important documents. When something of this magnitude should be done so confidential, there's got to be someone out there giving all the various, you know, news streams that leads, that, you know, showing them paperwork, giving them quotes from unnamed people, you know, everything getting out very, very quickly into the media. You know, the accusation of the piracy.
Oh, his mother must have rang again.
All that type of stuff. The human rights is obviously one that's in, you know, going like that. So I do believe there's got to be people out there, yeah, and it could be, you know, they've seen what Newcastle done in the 90s. And I think it frightened people because they didn't think Newcastle were going to come up from the Championship and start being one of the big boys. And I think, yeah, there could be a little bit of fear factor. You know, it took them a while to deal with Manchester City. Obviously, Liverpool are doing with that, and they're thinking if another one comes along the road, and it's going to make it hard. I mean, the manager and coach that I respect as much as anybody, Pep Guardiola, he loves the English Premier League, because when he's manager of Barca and Bayern, you knew what the outcome was going to be all the time with them. Obviously, Barca had the situation with Real Madrid, but as long as they took care of that, the league was theirs. Where he says the difference in England is you haven't just got one rival, you've got 5, 6, 7, and even the top teams can lose to the bottom teams, and he loves that. And I think if another, you know, strong, powerful club like Newcastle, it already is, but if it gets, you know, the help it needs in terms of the finance, there could be people out there who are a little bit concerned by that.
Yeah, 100%, mate. Graham Bowman says, Lee, you were a hero of mine and my cousins when you were living in Mullen Gardens. You gave us one of your tapes that Geordie Buster did.
Still have that house. My sister lives down there. My mum lives on Mullen Road as well. So, belt high, the Geordie Busker. He used to be on. It was a Geordie dancer. He used to get his little spells on Soccer EM, didn't he? Had a couple of clips on there. I'm not sure I done the Geordie public any favours. Like, seeing that, I'm a shocking dancer, so he probably put me to shame as well.
Paul Gillingham says, when, not if, the takeover goes through, how many additions would you say we need to start challenging for regular European football, and what area should be a priority, Lee?
I think the whole group will be looked at, every single position, because if you want to be one of the best, it has to be that way. But what I've always said is, what you'll find some players will not be able to handle the pressure of players coming in to challenge them, and a higher standard of player. So the standard of the training goes higher again. Some of them will not be able to handle it, but you'll find others who, if done okay for Newcastle, will relish that challenge. And it's, you know, it's a weird one, but when you play with better players, you become a better player yourself, because when you're surrounded by really good players, it becomes quite easier for you as a footballer if you can handle the pressures that come with it, and the constant demands and the high standards. You know, so there'll be players that you think, oh, he mightn't be able to last if the team gets improved, but then he flourishes. Whereas others, you think, oh, he could do well, but he mightn't be able to handle the expectation level. You know, the expectation level of the fans is still there, but at the moment in time, the expectation levels of the club is just to stay in the Premier League. So that's, you know, there's not a lot of expectation there. You don't have to win a lot of Premier League games to achieve that. But if you're going to be owned by people who want you to be a European powerhouse in a couple of years after their takeover, you're going to have to win a hell of a lot of Premier League games to achieve that. So that's when the demands become higher and harder on you. And, you know, all I can do is give personal examples. And when Kevin was continually improving the squad, I know the transfer window system was different then, but when there was another top player coming in on a monthly basis to improve the squad, you knew the standard of training was going to go up, the standard of the match performance was going up, the demands from the manager and his staff and the group was going to go up. So you had to improve yourself. So you had to work, had to keep giving everything, want to learn and listen from the players that were coming in and the staff, but also, be ready for those demands and then also better yourself, because it does actually become easier when you play with better players.
Yeah, of course it does, mate. Of course it does. Next question's from Mark Henderson. He says, Lee, how did you feel when you scored for Fulham against Newcastle?
No, listen, I felt great emotion because I'd scored the winner. Fulham were in a precarious position. One of my best mates just took over as caretaker manager, Chris Coleman. So these type of results were going to help him get the job on a permanent basis. As I said, I loved my time at Fulham. Fantastic club, great people. And I was delighted. My dad was sitting in the Newcastle end. He didn't even celebrate. He was in behind the goal with the Newcastle fans. And it's something you have to do. The year after, when I scored again and we took the 2-0 lead with Louis Saha, but Shearer inspired Newcastle, came back and beat with 3-2. I was gutted we'd lost the game. So, you've got to be professional. You've got to be, ready to do your job. So, yeah, of course. That's the only time I wanted Newcastle to lose. The 2 times I played against them, home and away for Fulham or whoever. And the rest of the time I wanted them to be successful. And you've got to do the job the best of your ability. And to be fair, Shane never used to save them ones in training either. The one I beat him with that day to score the winner.
Good. Tom asks, do you have many trophies in your cabinet? Now, you've had a few medals, Lee, haven't you?
Yeah, I had 3 championship medals from all the different clubs, lots of mementos. I've got 4 Manager of the Month awards. I'm not a one where this room where I'm sitting now has a few 10, 12 pictures of me playing career. No, I'm not one for having a trophy cabinet and sticking things up there. My kids, they're the future for this family now. So if they've got anything to celebrate, we'll put that out in the open. And so I just have a few, pictures, action pictures from Newcastle and Fulham days. My father-in-law won't let us put any Sunderland ones up. So,
good lad.
So we just got that one. Got things like that. So as I said, the most proud thing we've got in the house in terms of football is my son's first England jersey that he wore, and we've got that in a frame, not washed, and the team sheet on that. So that's the proudest football memorabilia we've got in the house.
Class. Philip Shuttleworth says, Lee, if you would have gone to Scotland, would you have picked Rangers or Celtic?
Oh, difficult. I didn't actually realise. I knew they were big clubs, but until I went up there and I managed against them both at Ibrox and Celtic Park, and I'd obviously been up to play pre-season friendlies there with both Newcastle and Fulham, and obviously my big pal Alan Thompson played for them, and I went to watch him. And while I was managing in Scotland, I went to a Celtic Barcelona Champions League game, and it was phenomenal atmosphere. But I didn't realise how big they were, and if I had realised that at the time, I probably would have went and signed. I could have signed, obviously, as I said, when I left in '96. I had another opportunity when I was at Fulham, when Alex McLeish was at Rangers, to go there again, and just decided not to. And it's probably a regret. It's a tough one. It's a real tough one. I see sometimes have a softer spot for Celtic, but I see that, that organisations are not just football clubs, they're huge. I speak to Alan, they're not just known in Europe, it's the Middle East, it's Australia, it's everywhere. America, they used to go on pre-season, end of season trips. I mean, the example was, and we all know this from Alan Shearer's testimonial, any player who wants a full house, Alan was going to get it no matter who we put as the opposition, but any player that's getting a testimonial, they'll always go for a Celtic or a Rangers because they know they're going to bring a substantial amount of players. And Alan used to say, end of season, their season used to carry on for another month because they'd be playing 8-10 testimonial matches for all over, especially the UK. So it would be a tough one. And if you had a held a gun to my head, I'd probably say Celtic. And it is now I know and I see the size of the place and the atmosphere. We've talked about spine-tingling things, and which away grounds. Did you feel any different? And I said probably Anfield and Old Trafford. The rest all felt same. Celtic and Rangers when I've been there, and I've been to Old Firm games as well. They're just on a different planet. Them Old Firm games, they're just mental, man. So yeah, I would gun to me head probably Celtic, but either or. I wouldn't. There's no no 100% choice.
Yeah. Sean Wilson said, Joe Linton, Almiron, and St Maximin. Keep neutral.
Keep Almiron, St Maxim, without a shadow of a doubt. I think they could flourish. Joe Linton, I hope he delivers. I've seen an article from him this week saying his career at Newcastle's just starting. It's not the way he wanted it to start, but he says he'll when he leaves, he'll see a much better player. So he sounds as if, and he's saying the right things, that he's ready for the fight. And as we've said, this little break away from the football might have just, refocused him, being able to build his confidence levels up. The proof will be in the pudding. That's when you get back out in the pitch. He's got it all to do, but there's been players in that situation before, Steve. Not just at Newcastle, at various different clubs. I think I've already told the story when I first went to Fulham. I was a record signing, and for the first 2 months, I was useless. And they must have thought, who's this nugget? Like, we've paid all this money for him. And then one night down at Norwich, just had a real good game, and my confidence levels come back, and that was it. It just went on a run. And so hopefully, his has obviously took a little bit longer. He is wearing it. I think that was a tough decision to give him that jersey. I think you've got to earn that. It's the most iconic jersey in Newcastle United's history. And when you see the people who've had it before, it was just a PR disaster for me. Get him in the club, give him something, because I think that obviously plays a huge part when people are talking about him, fans. He's got that iconic jersey, and that'll weigh heavily on anybody. So that shouldn't have happened to him. He should have proved himself and then be given that opportunity. But it has, and so I'm hoping that he can be the player that he said he's going to be, and we're proved all wrong. You don't want anyone, especially when I've been in the game and I've, as I said, I've experienced, you're not hitting the ground running, and you worry about it. You're thinking, where's it gone? How's this happened? And it's all about the confidence. You haven't really changed. You just lost a little bit of confidence, and hopefully he's this little enforced break that he's had. He's regained that, and the manager and his staff have. I know they keep believing in him. They've got to, but let's see.
Steve Hutchinson says Masters cannot talk to BN about takeover. He's been telling BN the Saudi buying rights, which affects the stance in the Middle East. Remember, Masters cannot talk about the takeover. It's positive news, he feels, which is good. John Justice Allen, long time ago, you were captain of Fulham at the time. Very generous gesture, and he's talking about you're finding £250 in your back pocket by surprise. You generously try to leave it on the table in bar hopper drinks after helping you to a taxi. I put it in your back pocket. Another
brilliant. It's a regular occurrence, I tell you.
I've never known as many stories on these talkings, and they're all about you. Like, there's some absolute killers. There's a book in this than anything else.
My missus pulled a pair of swimming shorts out one day, and she was going to put them in the washing machine, so she was checking the pockets, and she found €300 in the back pocket. So that done as well for me next trip away. It was a blessing in disguise. Must have a field day. These taxi drivers sometimes after a night out must have a field day with me.
There's nothing like finding some money in a pair of old pants, though, mate, which is great. Funko, Freddie, and Costa. No. Do you still meet up with any of the old players for a knees up?
Yeah, of course. When I do the gigs with yourself, and we have the other lads, so you know, Rob Lee, John Beresford, what was obviously a big pal of mine and just down the road at York. See Alan quite a bit, Alan Thompson, and, you know, see Alan Shearer about, we live close. So, yeah, hey, listen, we had such good relationships whenever we bump into each other. You know, we do like to have a bit of crack, and, you know, it reminds you what you're missing on a daily basis, because nothing's changed. We've just got a little bit greyer, a little bit fatter, a little bit older, but the crack's still the same.
Yeah, exactly, mate. 100%. We've asked this one before again, but Sean might not have seen your answer. But does Steve Bruce deserve a chance to stay in charge of the takeover goes through? My
personal opinion is yes, and I'll repeat what I said. It's not because I'm his pal. I'm good friends with him. I'm a massive Newcastle United fan. I want the club to be successful. I want them to be winners and win some trophies in my lifetime. But I just think that, you know, under the circumstances, very much like Rafa, with his, you know, very difficult in terms of the group and where the club's expectation was, and not a lot of help in terms of the transfer market. He's delivered on that in terms of keeping the club, or it looks like it's going to keep the club in the Premier League. And I think when you're a manager and there's going to be a change in terms of takeover and the finances are going to improve, you want to be given that opportunity to show that you can do it. What comes with that very, very quickly, though, is, like I was just saying about the players, the manager will know there'll be no room for error. If they do say to Steve, you're going to be given a chance, but he has the extra budget, he has a better infrastructure, your training ground's going to be 21st century, this, that, and the other. That comes, you know, you've got to deliver. So, you know, losing a couple of games, losing 2 games out of 10 isn't probably going to be accepted. And you know that, because you know that that's what comes with, you know, this change. The demands become higher, and a manager of Steve's experience will understand that. What he'll also understand is that with a takeover, a lot of the time they want to bring their own man in from the first day. So he'll probably understand that, you know, there's a very strong chance that he could be replaced from day one. But he'll also understand if he is given that chance, the pressure's on to deliver. One, get your signings right, even though, because it doesn't matter if you've got a lot of money, it's easy to get things wrong in the transfer market if it isn't done right. You can easily buy the wrong type of players to fit the way you want to play or your club. So, you know, he has to get that right. He has to get the team winning, continuously. You know, having good runs of form. Yes, the odd defeat here and there, but, you know, and he knows that. And so, yeah, definitely, whether he does, you always know that you're under pressure once a new consortium takes over the football club you're currently managing.
Yeah. Simon Cox says, Lee, I've missed a load as I thought it started at 3. I know Matty will have spoken about thinking about you. What Tomo and Elliot Appleby and more of the Aussie kids, we can't let the kids go. So he just essentially, you know, what you said at the top of the program, really, you know, we can't afford to leave young talent like, you know, Matty and Sean Longstaff leave the club. We should be building around that.
Without a shadow of a doubt. And not because they're local, because they're good local players. They're good, you know, that they're talented. They're good enough to be in the first team, in the 11. They have the ability to be in the 11. So, yeah, they don't just tick the box on me because they're Geordie lads. No, they're good players. And as I said, for the sake of taking a risk and matching what the potential offers and, you know, the rumours about these offers that have been given by Udinese, potentially then I'm going on to Watford, that could be 10 million quid max extra on what you've got to do in what you're offering them at the moment. And I think that would be eaten up if in 5 years, because you'd have an extremely talented Premier League potential international football on your hands.
Yeah, 100%. Phil Wilson, loving these broadcasts. Watching in Birmingham, my work for the NHS, so great to have them share. Well done, mate. And yeah, we did give the NHS a shout out yesterday. It's great work that they're doing.
Well, Phil, you're the hero to all us, and that's come to the fore in these last few months. I think a lot of people knew you weren't anyway. Didn't get the credit you deserved before that. I mean, my eyes were opened a few years ago when, you know, my father was in hospital for a long period of time, and I seen the extraordinary lengths, you know, the NHS went through there, the care they gave my father, before unfortunately he passed away. But I seen that at close quarters, and then it's just been reiterated by this pandemic. And yous are the real heroes. So thanks for the nice words, but you deserve all the plaudits.
Hengus Pod says, did you ever get a chance to play broadly?
Yeah, as I said earlier, Marseille was a possibility when I left in 96, 97. And I had a chance when there was a spell when the Bosmans first come in. Osasuna were a club in the La Liga then. Had a potential to go there, but turned down. I just thought that Broad Geordie and Marseille could cause more problems than it did solve, to be honest. And I seen the problems when Joey Barton went over there, so I probably ducked one then, to be honest.
Brian just says NHS, which we agree with. Sean Sturrock says, Steve, do you fancy getting some t-shirts with yep 100% on? Which obviously my catchphrase, so yep, I might do 100%. Paul Davison says, Lee, check your swimming trunks again, mate. You might have enough to buy Sunderland. You could turn it into a feeder club for Borough. Colin Wilson says, local
it's a good one.
Will always give that little bit extra, which again is 100%.
I think on that one, Steve, as well, and especially because the game's become more cosmopolitan anyway. But we did have foreign lads in there: Philippe Albert, Marc Ottajar, David, Tino, many of them. But we can push in the dressing room what it means to play for the club, what it means to the supporters of the football club. And keep reiterating that on a daily basis, and the players get it. The players get it like that, if it's coming from another player, but who's been born and bred from that area. And I think that quickly hit home with the signings we made in that era as well. And what you've got to do is, you've got to be up to the task of playing first and foremost. It doesn't matter, just because you come from the area, you've got to be able to do it, and then you can push on what that club means to the supporters.
Yeah, 100%, mate. Jay asks, if you had 5 minutes with Mike Ashley Lee, what would you say to him?
Why did you not spend some of them billions you've got? Just Newcastle United's luck, we get a billionaire who doesn't want to spend any money. Because I think even at the time when he took over, I was working in a coaching capacity, and I'm massive fans of Sir John Hall and Freddie Shepherd, and I know there's people out there who won't reiterate that, but some who will back that up. I think the only things they're probably guilty of is giving their managers lots of money and not interfering and letting them get on with the signings, And then I know there's people talk about, well, they took money out the club when they sell, but they took the risks initially as well, when they came in and they put the money in. So it's, Mike, you're just like thinking, why did you do it? Why did you do it? And football's not like any other business. I say that all the time. It's for the people. You're just looking over the club for the supporters, because it doesn't matter who the owner is at any given time. When they go and disappear and someone else takes over, the only common factor in all of it is the supporters, and they stay through generations. Great granddads, dads, sons, grandsons, and all that. It's just a generational thing. So it's just, and the infrastructure, I don't get it. I don't. It's not going to cost a lot of money. Why he thinks that the current training facilities are good enough for Premier League, when he's probably seen, and his staff and his administration team have probably seen the other facilities around the country. They would be the questions I'd ask him, because ultimately, if he doesn't want to spend money, you've got to then produce your own, and you've got to have good facilities and a good recruitment team to get the best young players, and have the facilities to develop those players as well. So then you put them in your team, you get more local players in your team, so you don't have to go spending crazy amounts of money on your first team squad, because you have 6-7 locals in there. So, a lot of the things haven't made sense in terms of the football.
Yeah, 100%, mate. It's going to be an interesting time over the next few weeks as we see what happens.
I see Michael Foster's question there. Who gave the nickname Jigsaw? That was Barry Fennison and Paul Bracewell, the two old, because I used to call them the old gits off the Fast Show. And they scored like one goal in the whole career between them, so they stuck that on us one day. But they never called us that. Like around the place, it was always Nash. So that that one's them two will get side. They started that one.
Yeah, plenty of compliments coming in again. Thanks, guys, saying that they're really enjoying it. Last couple of questions. But Funko Freddy says, awesome band once again. Thanks for taking your time out to do this. No problem at all. Lee, who was the best player you played against? Says Reece.
Internationally, in foreign clubs was Zidane. Was just ridiculous. Domestically was a hard one to separate Roy Keane and Paul Scholes. And then if I can just add that onto it, because I never got the chance to play with him, and I played against him when he was coming to the tail end of his career. But I worked against him in training ground matches, was obviously Gaza, who was a phenomenal talent. So I'm glad I didn't have to play against him when he was in his prime, mine. But probably those three, Keane and Scholes, difficult to separate domestically, and Zidane.
Yeah. Simon Cox says, can you still speak Spanish? Mrs. Charlton wants to know.
Uno, dos, tres.
Jeff Willick says, top class show again. Cheers, boys. Wayne Black says, game cracking show. Keep it up, lads. Sean Hutchie will give Sean the last question. What do you see the future for Newcastle United if the deal is rejected and actually stays? Do you think it will just carry on, or do you think he would change after this? I mean, it's the question which has to be asked. Something we don't want to think about, but what happens if the takeover didn't go through and we ended up with actually staying at the club?
Well, what I would say initially straight away, and I don't want to put a dampener on the show getting towards the end, would be absolute devastation amongst Newcastle United fans, that's for sure, because they've had their hopes built up in the last few weeks. I don't think anything would change. I don't think Mike's for changing. I think he's proved that, that there wouldn't be any change to how he's ran the club previously. But I'm hoping that, and was said before, someone will respect them immensely, and Henry Winter, that he says a takeover's happening. It just depends who's going to end up doing it. And Mike will no longer be the owner of the club, So, but if that worst case scenario happens, you worry, because you can't keep just trying to want to avoid relegation all the time. You can't just keep doing that, because eventually you'll come unstuck, like we have twice under his stewardship and got relegated. So, I hope it doesn't come to that.
Yeah, but fingers crossed it does. I'm trying to think something where we can finish on more of a high. Gamer Will says he thinks he's washed his hands at all. Mike, actually, could we be seeing another 4 months of the American consortium trying to take over again? That's not something I would expect. I genuinely don't see that happening. The Saudis and PIF and PCP and Rubens have spent too much time and effort getting this to this level without it cocking up. I think this will go through. Well, Davison says another quality. Yeah, lads, thanks for your time. Same as Tim Ken. Jason Carter says great stuff. And Clark looking hard at 25 years older. Thanks for the great show as always. He's trying to depress. Joe Walker says class, lads. Nick Williams as well. Look, it's just all positive comments coming in now, mate. No more questions. But look, another good talk in Lee, and hopefully, as I say, we keep saying it. We're another week closer, and hopefully something will.
Well, I tell you what's a positive one to end on, Steve. Obviously, we got the fixtures this week of what the remaining games.
Yeah.
So a couple of those, so that gets you going again, gets you a little bit excited, even though behind closed doors. But at least it gives you something to look forward to, and hopefully they can deliver on those performances when you're watching them at home on the television. I mean, it's going to be, for anyone who loves football, it's just going to be a bonanza at games, with all these Premier League games being shown, over a couple of days each week, each round of matches. It's going to be brilliant. So really looking forward to that, and it was real positive to see those fixtures come out. It just gets you trying to get back to a little bit normality again, really.
Of course it does, mate. Well, have a good week. Thanks for joining us again, mate.
Cheers,
and
Steve.
I'll see you next Saturday, pal. Take care.
All right. Good luck, everyone. Stay safe.
Great stuff. Cheers, Lee. Tomorrow, then, I will be doing Instagram with Michael Shopra, but you don't want to watch, or you can't watch on Instagram. I will be loading it onto YouTube, so don't worry, you won't miss out. You will get it on YouTube, it just won't be live. But if you want to join in the debate and ask a few questions, follow @SteveWraith on Instagram and you can join the show live. If you just want to watch it, then it will be available on YouTube. We'll be back to doing live shows on this particular platform on June the 22nd. But don't worry, there'll be a show every night and we'll be loading them up onto YouTube on the channel. Okay, take care, have a good day, enjoy the Liverpool game.